Well, howdy. So there are a bunch more posts. Seems like the only reason I get on here anymore, although I do have some things that I want to work on. So for coming attractions, which I guess they only do at the movies, I will say pay attention if you would, because I have a couple things I'm going to work on over the next few days. I truly appreciate all the great comments. It is heartening. It's a busy project. There are some folks in this last one, by the way, which you can look at. I don't have the names right here, but there are 3 or 4 people who posted on that one I did this morning on all that military cryptic stuff, and there are some fabulous responses. Obviously, neither they nor I can verify the accuracy of all of them, but there is a lot of meat to it, and it's not mine. So thank you for it, and I do appreciate the input. I have to say, here's the deal, and I've looked at the 8chan folks. Nobody has all the answers on this, and as I pointed out with the Apache thing, some of these take 2 or 3 weeks. 10,000 people looking and weeks to lock it down, and another a cryptic response from Q that says, yeah, you found it. But so it takes time, and part of the idea, and we'll talk about it here, is that the reason that this is being done is not to make us all crazy, although sometimes it does. It's to awaken people to start looking, to start putting pieces together, to start saying, this doesn't make sense to me unless I know this and this and this, and then when you put them together it all makes sense. What I think that I add to some of this process, and you obviously may or may not agree, and many of you posters do as well, as do a lot of the people that are on YouTube that are starting to put these pieces together, is that we begin to see the Matrix. And I don't mean the Matrix movie, although that may have some impact as well someday. But we see all of these pieces from all of these divergent sources starting to come together and to make sense as a whole. So enough of me talking about general stuff. There are, I don't know, 8 or 10 postings again today. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but there's some interesting stuff. The first one has to do with Newsweek making some comments about things which were first on InfoWars or began to spread widely. Has to do with the whole Q phenomenon, about how it is a vague, portentous, fake message, and it's fake news, and that the president started all this because on October 5th, when asked one of the questions that he was asked with a bunch of military leaders around for photo op, he made a cryptic comment about maybe it's the calm before the storm. And somebody said, one of the reporters said, "What storm, Mr. President?" And the response was, "You'll find out." Thank you, everybody. And so this whole business with the Q thing came in on a storm, and came in as a storm, and came in linking President Trump with some of the initial Q drops right from the start. And as many people did right at the start, there were a whole bunch of tweets from Trump and drops from Q that matched up and aligned in obvious ways and within minutes of each other, and that mirrored each other. So most of us have come to the conclusion that it's not all just bland coincidence. What is more than that, and this is really important, is that this thing is coming to a crescendo. It's almost like somebody is orchestrating some grand drama, and now the kettle drums are coming in and things are pounding harder and harder. So even though I give it some skepticism, I give the whole Q thing some skepticism, what I know about it is, the points of interest are directly on point, and they match what many of us think has to happen in order for us to recover this constitutional republic. And B, it's chicken or feathers, folks. It's either going to come to this crescendo and something is really going to happen, or it's going to come to this crescendo and there's going to be a giant plop and nothing's going to happen. In which case we can either sit there and say, oh yeah, it's just like all the other ones, or we can say, no, not this time. We're going to do something. We're really going to do something this time, and we're going to make it happen. So we're either backing Trump or we're backing ourselves. And backing ourselves is the harder trip. There's no question about it. But we've got to make this happen. So the next post is a Pledge of Allegiance, just simply I pledge allegiance to the flag that was referenced in a YouTube. The next post has to do, there's an anonymous posting which includes the secure drop guys, 2 of them that committed suicide for various reasons, the transfer of the secure drop to freedom of the press, and then it goes through a whole bunch of names. Daniel Ellsberg, Loya Poitras, who is the one who did the story on Snowden, Assange, Cusack, etc., John Perry Barlow, and Glenn Greenwald, etc. So what Q says about that is just simply quotes those things and then says John Perry Barlow 187, post name secure drop, and it's in quotes, and you can take that as secure drop is basically dead, and then it says at Snowden you are now a liability. And I've said, and I said this morning, Snowden's a black hat, and the linkage I think is all here. And one of the things that Q has done is said, look at this, look at this, look at this. Snowden's not the good guy you think he is. We who believe in freedom, who believe that the constitutional protections that we have of not having a secretive government watching after us all the time, the Patriot Act and the rest of it, looked at Snowden as some kind of a white hat good guy who was a whistleblower and who opened up the whole process for many of us. And what Q is saying to us now is pay attention, that's not necessarily what you think it is. The next posting is at Jack, which is the Twitter boy. Civilian puppet, player in the game, we play for keeps. How was your meeting with Pelosi? Protection offered. Life lesson, be smarter than those controlling you. And T minus, and then there is a kill box with 1234. Note that this was done at 1228, and it says T minus 1234, and so you can either say that that's a specific time, or you can say, hey, look, you got 6 minutes, one or the other. And I think it is somewhat cryptic and not necessarily actual down to the minute kind of a deal. I don't expect that he died 6 months later. But the idea is, hey, your time's running out. You're running out short. The next ones have to do with a variety of things, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. There are links here. I'm going to attach them. It has to do with the MKULTRA and the congressional hearings, the Senate hearings that went on I think in 1977. You can download the whole thing. It's about 180 pages or 150 pages. Many of you know what the MKUltra stuff is, at least symbolically. It has to do with chemical experimentation by the CIA in the 50s and 60s, using LSD, etc., and both in the United States and Canada, with people who died and the rest of that. And it is it's stuff that about which we can pay attention. There are some linkages to this that make this, that I will talk about here in a minute. The next one has to do with car control, or at least the next part of it. And there's a picture of a car crash of a guy coming out of the forest into a gutter, drainage thing, directly pointed at the presidential motorcade. And the comment is, statement by the driver, fairy tale as the world turns, it's bigger than anyone can imagine. And it has to do with either MKUltra stuff, with being triggered, or with having automatically operating cars. I mean, you pick, it could be any one of all of them, but they're all in play. The next stuff has to do with an anonymous that does the MKUltra stuff in Canada. and provides a whole bunch of links to various things that went, there discussions that went on in the 80s and 90s about it. And Q ties this together in the next two posts that say, have any of the recent shooters received, dead shooters in the kill box shooters, received therapy in the past? Be the outest we know you are. You were chosen for a specific reason. So what, part of what we're seeing here is that a lot of these folks that are, we've got false flags, and some false flags are are totally false. They're staged. Some false flags are of real people doing minimally damaging stuff run by the CIA, etc., the fake bombings. Some of them are like Mandalay, which may have been for some other op or as a distraction. God knows that's not a very fun distraction. But you've got the guy in Denver, you've got San Bernardino, you have a whole bunch of others, and the question then is, were these people, many of them, especially the ones that died at the end of it, it's quite convenient when you have some kind of action, some kind of gun-related action, and then the guy coincidentally dies at the end of this, which is a perfect checkout, right? Then you don't have to investigate, there's no murder scene, there's no anything else at all. It gets mopped up because the guy conveniently died. So the next comment from Q is, you guys need to make the discoveries organically, a hive mind, which is kind of what we are. That's part of what the folks that posted on my channel have done, is to work the hive mentality, and me too. We're all bees bumbling around, finding the pieces, putting them together, trying to make sense of all of this, and in the process, we and 50 and 100 and 500 get activated and are all doing the same thing. It's not an empty exercise. It's like learning to walk and then learning to run, and as we do, everything becomes more activated. So it's not all wasted action. I know it feels terribly frustrating, but it's not. Here's one for which I do not have. I looked at and spent some time on scientists who are working on mobile phone signals to end users, or the use of mobile phone stuff, but I do not have. Q questions and says there are 3 dead scientists who were killed, who were researching the SAT relay of mobile phone signals to end users. Why was the research deemed classified? Learn. I don't have it, and I did some looking around for it. I know somebody else can find it, but I can't. I can cover 82 or 92% of this. I can't cover it all, and I suppose if there were 20 or 30 of us and we teamed at it, we could, and I'm open to it. There are at least 3 or 4 or 5 of you that are putting stuff on my channel right now who are doing super work. If you want to collaborate, there's no magic in me doing this, none at all. I'm happy to be a part of it. So you want to join, you want to call yourself a seething frog, you want to jump out of the pot, I don't care. It's all good. It's all good. It's not about me. It's about us as patriots, us as citizens, us as little people saying, hey, look, this can't go on anymore. And so we'll stand up and be counted. And I invite any of you who want to count in, jump out of the pot, let's go. So I'm up for it, and just let me know and I'll get you onto my email, and I have a website all ready to go with Seething Frog, and away we go. You tell me. So the next one has to do, one of the Anons say, well, gee, are we safe? Because they can use this stuff against us. Are we safe? And Q responds and says, first of all, you kind of have to find the right people. Secondly, it takes time to work the programmable devices, and so you're not in it. You're not part of the process. So let's see the next one. Oh, this is really important. So MKUltra was, of course, supposedly terminated, and the question then is, what went on after that? And what we have to know is, just as is the case with with Kennedy and 2000 and 9/11 and the rest of that look like little blips, right? Well, in between time, the stuff keeps working and the stuff keeps getting better. And I'll show you from my perspective with my pandemopoly thing that this has been true since the early 1800s, that it gets tried and it gets revised and it gets used again, and it gets tried and revised and used again. And so what Q responds is that why is big pharma essential, and then ties it to Google and the Pixel phones and Apple and Samsung, and why was BlackBerry destroyed. And there were several people that posted stuff about it. It had the BlackBerry had a more secure base, that it was Canadian made. It wasn't as ready to be ripped and used. That Apple, the new Apples, have more EMF waves than the others, and comparisons between them. And so the question then is, how does big pharma and these relatively unrelated stuff of Apple and Google and the rest of these guys have any relationship to each other? And the answer is, no, it's not nothing. It's not nothing, to use a double negative, all right? It is that the chemistry that is being used by big pharma makes people more susceptible to the electronics and perhaps the messages and perhaps the linkages with the chemicals themselves. So this stuff's a lot more sophisticated than we think it is. And so we need to start putting the dots together, and we need to be aware that the 30-odd% of the kids that are getting psychotropic drugs in school that are supposedly helping them along is part of the problem, or could be part of the problem. So the other comment that Q made in this play in 774 is archive everything offline. They are watching. I'm not sure that I'm all that concerned about it, but yeah, that makes good sense. And I have my stuff hard drived off. So the next question has to do, and it's a great big long series question. It has to do with, why is POTUS focused on Saudi Arabia, China, and Russia? And of course it has to do with money and management and terrorism and North Korea and the Clintons and Snowden and the ops that are being done in Russia. It also has to do with, and the next questions come, what damage can Russia do to the Democrats? And some of this, and I think a lot of this, is projection. That is to say, they focused on Trump having salacious and sexual things going on in Russia, when in fact the Democrats were doing it, or doing the whole Podesta stuff and everything else. They focused on Trump having connections with Russia about elections, when in fact the Democrats were playing all kinds of games with Diebold and Soros and the rest of that in the elections. And if you like, I'll give you a pile of stuff on that. They focused on Russia and Trump getting benefits and getting money, when in fact Uranium One and the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation were getting millions and millions of dollars and lots of stuff going, perhaps that we haven't even seen. The China thing goes clear back to the Clinton administration, that is the Bill Clinton administration, and they've been passing technology to China for at least 25 years. And I cringed when Boeing said it was going to give all of its stuff to China to build airplanes. It was supposedly for commercial airlines, but it works just as well. The whole production scene, the digital stuff, the CAD programs and everything all work just as well 4 days later to make military. So the question then is, why does Hussein travel before and after the POTUS, Ray foreign trips? And everybody noted that he's probably, that afterwards is trying to reconstruct and get reassurance and have people say, no, we didn't tell him what you didn't want us to tell him. And he's going there ahead of time to set up talking points to cover his tracks, to try to get them aligned before before Trump shows up. So I think there's an awful lot of gamesmanship going on, and probably not just with Obama, but with a number of others. And we've seen that with the guys from Google, and we've seen it elsewhere. So why is POTUS focused on bringing back manufacturing? And it talks about job security control, and then true control, which has to do both with controlling our own production, controlling our own military capacity. You know, you can't make military stuff if you don't have steel, folks. You can't make military stuff if you don't have the production. If you don't have manufacturing, you can't protect yourself. And you can't protect yourself if all of your software and everything else is being produced offline in your electronics. You know, we have found out recently, and we've seen this, there are bugs put into this stuff, bugs not the right word, but backdoors set up into a lot of our hardware and or software that allows for secretive access, and China can do it to us as well as our own folks can. Then it says, and this is the next to the last part, you know, trust the plan, we are winning. I've tried to say this. I really believe this. You know, again, it's trust but verify, but I believe that this is the best shot we got. And if it turns out not to be the best shot, then we'll do the next best shot. But if Trump's on the plan, and if Q is telling the truth, and there are lots of stuff that seems to indicate that, this is the way to go. So watch for unfolding events, match the stuff up, match up the proofs. We've seen a bunch of them. I know people say, well, gee, where is it? Where are these arrests and everything? And what this says is, you know, we can't arrest everybody till we build a foundation for it. The direct confirmation will come. It cannot come now. It will be lost. The message is not ready. You are part of the army. We are depending on you for God and country. Where we go one, we go all. Stay safe this week. And it's basically a rah-rah, you know, like any battle plan. The guy finishes with the rah-rah, with the plan. So the last one has to do with Senator Warren. I'm going to play with that probably on my thumbnail cover. Basically, it has to do with a committee set up, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which she played with, and her outrage over Mick Mulvaney's appointment as director of it, because what she had been able to do over the last several years is use the fines from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to feed to some of her liberal pet projects. And they're talking about $5 billion in penalties, which were put into slush funds for Democratic projects, like an Obama-Hillary ad firm that got $14.7 million. There were $16 million on a payday thing to market materials about student loans. There's a whole variety of other things in here, and the idea is that that's what's doing it. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your support and help. I welcome any of you to add material. When you're ready to, let me know. I'll start making things available on my website. And you know, let's keep the 10 million going. We are the patriots. We are the little guys with the muskets watching for Paul Revere to ride by. And as that happens, we're ready. And we're more ready all the time. And when we know that Paul Revere is going to ride by and the battle is on, then we need to be ready. And I know this sounds melodramatic, but we've had 250 years to sleep, and it's time to wake up. So thank you so much.